So welcome everyone this evening. So we always start the Sykesville Historic District Commission with an opening statement. The qualifications of the members of the commission, the staff of the commission, and any consultant used or on file with the town and are hereby made part of each and every application heard tonight. The guidelines and procedures adopted by the commission are also made part of each and every application. Each application heard tonight is considered on its own merits and is not to be considered as establishing precedent for any other application. The Historic District Design Guidelines have been adopted by the Town of Sykesville in accordance with Article 6B 8.06a of the Maryland Code and follow the recommendations of the United States Secretary of the Interior. The Sykesville Historic District Commission follows Robert's Rules of Order with the exception that the chairperson votes. So this evening we have a pretty brief agenda. We'll start off with minutes from March 26, 2025. Have you other board members had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions or modifications to those minutes needed? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes from March 26.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes carry. All right. So this evening we have one agenda item. Act on 2025-06 renovations, alterations, and additions to the Sykesville train station located at 7618 Main Street. And Kevin, could you give us your staff report?
Yeah, we got the brief staff report for us. So the applicant, they submitted this application along with the illustrated narrative, which was included with the staff reports. They described the proposed changes to the Sykesville train station building located at 7618 Main Street. The intention here is to better accommodate continued restaurant use in that space. So HEC approval is being requested for the following items. They wanted to construct a new rear platform enclosure, which will allow for year-round dining in that space, which will it'll include new doors, windows, and a roof on the platform space. And then replace the existing kitchen addition with a larger addition that will accommodate a larger kitchen along with a hyphen to connect it to the existing building and a walk-in cooler. The narrative also included information about some interior renovations, particularly the flooring in the freight room, which, as we know, the HDC does not have to approve that. That is more for the MHT folks. So, quick background, we know the structure was built in 1883. It's a contributing building in the historic district. And when looking at additions on historic buildings, our guidelines specifically reference the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and treatment of historic properties. And I put the two most relevant points from those criteria in the staff report. Quickly, basically just says that any new additions shouldn't should be able to be differentiated from the old existing structure and should be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, as well as massing. And then new additions and new construction should be done in a way that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property would remain. So we're looking at those two criteria, and then also obviously all materials being requested should be consistent with our guidelines as well. So in the staff report, I put all the requested items, the materials they're using, and then the relevant sections from our HCC guidelines, but just in the interest of time, I won't go through each one just because there's a decent amount. Basically, I'll just give the analysis. So the information provided in the narrative does appear to be consistent with both the standards for rehabilitation and treatment of historic properties, as well as the materials requested do also appear to be consistent with our guidelines as well. So with that being the case, we're asking HGC to determine if the requested alterations and additions at 7618 Main Street are appropriate or to suggest any alternative actions. Following a review of the attached narrative along with our guidelines, staff does feel that the requested items are appropriate and does recommend approval of the application as written. I included a suggested motion as always, and I believe we have a representative here as well for you guys to ask some questions.
Can you give us a brief rundown of what the MHT ruling was on this building?
So it hasn't been finalized yet. So they submitted, and maybe you can talk a little bit more to this as well. But
yes, I'm Joe Leatherman. I'm on the design team. We had submitted our preliminary conceptual things, including the enclosure of the platform and more significantly the lower of the freight room floor. And pretty much everything that we're still planning on doing. And at this stage, MHT was like, looks good. They approved everything without any concerns. Of course, now that the drawings are more fully developed and more specifications, we'll see what they have to say after that.
Okay. Any questions, you guys? Have you reviewed it? So the first thing that stood out to me was in our guidelines, it clearly specifies about open porches and about maintaining the character of open porches.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget where it is. I was just trying to find it in here, but maybe you can quickly find it and bring it up so we can read that. But it pretty much elaborates onto the point that enclosed porches are not usually recommended for historic district buildings, especially main facades, and we consider this a main facade. And so I'm just wondering what MHT's ruling on this is, because our guidelines kind of go against.
So I will say I know that MHT did approve the existing, even though it's more of a temporary enclosure, but they did approve enclosing that back porch area previously, which allowed the last tenants to do so.
But that was just temporary.
Right.
Canvas roof and roll down plastic walls.
Yeah, this is more of a permanent.
Right. So as far as what MHT is going to say on that, TBD.
But I would like to offer that the style of construction and how we're attaching it, connecting it to the main building, very much keeping in mind that it is, roofs are not laying on roofs. I mean, there's independent structure underneath there, so that the new roof and enclosure is not bearing architecturally anywhere on the existing structure. And, currently one could say the first thing I noticed when I did visit the site was how there's been a one-by attached literally to the outriggers, the historic parts of the overhang on the platform side, and hanging that canvas off of that, which actually was degrading, in some areas of the existing structure. So what we're going to be working underneath that, sort of just nestling it underneath it and supporting it so that snow, water, whatnot from the existing slate roof, won't be affected or impacted.
Did you find that chapter?
Yeah, right here, enclosing a porch.
Are those windows able to open?
Oh yeah, that's very much so. Every window would be an operable window to allow them, when they do have decent weather, to enjoy that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, I was always from initially saying, hey, let's do this casement window structure in between the posts, and they were starting to fall in love with this nanowall product, which was it can open up and jackknives, and I'm like, that gentleman, I said, that's not going to fly. I said, it's just too much of a contemporary detail. And I said, it's going to be really feeling out of place and not respecting the station building itself.
And this guideline section does mention, not significantly altering original character of the porch. I think it might be referencing if the porch itself is historic, but we know this one was a later added addition to accommodate seating, restaurant seating.
Yeah, the actual train station itself never had a porch. Mm. So we're sort of creating something that was never there, but also wanting it to maintain structure, style, detail. That would be.
I believe that the addition of that porch also had to get MHT approval when that porch was built as well. So.
When was the porch built?
We're thinking sometimes in the early 1990s. Because that seemed to be when the first conversion to the restaurant occurred.
Kevin, was there a platform there before that extended out to the tracks, or was it just kind of a? Do we have any idea?
I'm not sure off the top of my head if there was a.
There was. I remember seeing some historic photos, but by the late '80s, I think it had pretty much been removed.
But I mean, it wouldn't have had a porch overhang at that point. It would have been just an open. So I don't know. Maybe this needs to be treated less like a porch and more like an addition.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. It kind of ties into the material selection too, because they're specifying hardy siding for this. And so this is a contributing building, and so existing now is wood siding, right? And then another question I had was about the stucco. Where's the stucco being utilized?
Well, that's more.
That's in the Dutch gable roof.
But
like in
why?
the gable.
Why stucco?
That was, well, it was, and it's part of like the Hardy system too. They have a stucco type finish, so it wouldn't be
So it's not a troweled stucco system. It's just a
No.
panel that has a
a
stucco
panel
finish.
that's stucco finish. And that was my attempt, if you will, that on the main historic part of the building where the gable is and the two tone points there. So I'm sort of like acknowledging that, but wanting to not go as far as that has gone, so that there'd be a contrast in materials. You'd have a smooth surface trim, stucco, which would catch light differently, show a little texture, a little depth. And if anything, the coloration on that part would be just sort of tone on tone.
What about, Kevin, can you pull up additions to historic structures? Does it, and the materiality of those additions?
I mean, they're not supposed to match exact because you don't want to replicate the building,
Well, I mean,
but
it all depends on how we treat that porch. I mean, the addition for the, I think there's a link in between that's a historic structure, correct me if I'm wrong. The link in between the freezer box, I think it was at one point, in between the new kitchen and the existing building, there's a hyphen, it's in between.
Yeah, I mean, what is existing there now, it's small, it's tight. It has that kitchen addition up very tight to the building.
But that's remaining, correct? And you're just adding onto it to.
Oh, no, it would all be root because we're also adjusting floor level heights, like lowering the freight room floor to match the station interior floor. So the new kitchen would also be at the same platform, so that everything throughout the structure, easy, handicap accessibility would be maintained and whatnot. But also in our proposal, the hyphen actually gets wider. It extends close to more 10 feet. So it sort of pushes the kitchen away from the historic train station.
like wider this way, not like
No, because if you
Not
go right now, it's you can almost touch brick building and addition. So, but by pushing it that way, it allowed. But we also kind of need it from the interior layout for access to toilets, corridors, whatnot. But the bonus effect is the kitchen addition is stepping back and letting the train station, and it allows the brackets to be more visible and appreciated on both sides. Yeah.
You want to bring up that elevation so we can take a look at it?
So here's the
Right.
And that's asphalt shingles on the front? Or
Yes.
standing seam, where's the standing seam specified for?
Standing seam was going to be on the roof of the platform,
Okay.
and then on the cladding of the walk-in cooler that's on the outside,
this piece.
that part there.
Can I ask why we're moving to add multiple different types of roofing rather than going for kind of a unified, one type of roofing on all the newer portions?
For the platform roof, because of what we're trying to achieve with where that existing slate stops and where we can start and where we want to terminate, it gives us very low pitch. So an asphalt shingle wouldn't meet that requirement for.
I mean, to be honest, I'm more in favor of the standing seam metal for especially for the kitchen and that, if you're kind of styling it as an outbuilding with the board and batten, the standing seam almost would be more compatible with that to me.
I think part of the conversation that we had with that was that the mass of that kitchen is such that it's almost on par and at height level with the slated train station building. So the idea was to find an architectural shingle that has a mixed palette of color emulating and supporting that slate roof.
What's the pitch of the roof of the deck? Are you doing double sheathing then for code? Because it's low pitched, you're doing double sheathing, 2 layers of 5/8 inch.
I mean, it's a fully insulated because we had to meet energy code also to envelop it. So that's what also was happening was, right now they got a piece of canvas, and suddenly we're going from 1/2 inch to 6 inches, and plus, But I believe it's a 2x6 structure is what we're
I
saying.
just know there's code requirements for low pitched roofs with metal. I think it has to be 2 layers of 5/8 inch. Or 3/4 inch.
That concrete through and through. So you said you aren't attaching that structure to the existing train station, what were you saying about how it's deteriorating at the connection point? And you were taking that
What
out
happens
and-
right now is there are the outriggers of the overhang of over the platform.
Right, that they tied into the,
And they attached
sure,
a 1x and then hung the canvas from that.
okay.
So that is
So you're just
pulling
talking
down
about the
on
canvas
that.
itself, not the
So
actual
what we're creating is a structure inside, posts and beams, to carry its own roof. So it just touches the existing and actually steps down a little further than that canvas is now to allow a little more breathing room.
Okay.
Not literally breathing, but just visually breathing. 'Cause we don't want water to come back into our restaurant.
What do you guys think?
It's just a lot of added materials here. 3 different sidings, 2 different added roofings.
Yeah.
Just a lot of new components that, I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you with the standing seam metal roof. I understand how you're approaching the kitchen, but I think that continuity would be good for this project so that we're not looking at 3 different types of roof systems. What's on the hyphen now? Is that slate on top there?
No, it is just built up material.
Just flat roof?
Yeah, and kind of what we'd be having in this case is, because it is long and low and flat, and actually not really visible too much from grade up, you won't be able to see it. But it seems, the specifications right now from the architecture designs, that it is just a membrane roof.
And the doors that you're specifying for it, what are you specifying for doors?
At this point, we're looking at the Appella series,
Okay, just metal clad.
full wood door.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, it's same with the windows. The initial pathway has taken us down this Pella wood clad. It could possibly turn into a Marvin, similar thing, wood, but their cladding seems to be a little nicer, better detailing and whatnot.
Yeah.
The challenge is we enjoy the idea of the Pella with a roll down screen on the interior operationally, so that when their windows are closed, screens are out of the way and you have a full unobstructed view. That is not something Marvin is offering. So it's more of like, hey, Mr. Operator, we can give you screens, but if you want them removed, you have to pull them out. But they seem to have a very nice product that actually might be something we could tolerate and live with year round, because of its the nature of that screen material is such that it doesn't really degrade from the view. So they may even just keep that.
Anything else?
I mean, the only other thing that I flagged on was that Dutch gable roof. I think, Kevin, your report said there's examples in town. I was downtown and drove around yesterday. I Google mapped it. I couldn't find any. I'm not saying that means can't do it.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I know it's at least mentioned in the guidelines as an appropriate
Mhm.
style for the historic district, so.
And again, from an architect, we're like,
Sure.
how do we kind of minimize this so it's not,
Right. No.
stealing thunder?
Yeah, I got you. Just now's the time to ask.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So in your mind, are you trying to make this blend with the station, or are you trying to make this seem like an addition?
I like that buildings over time tell stories.
Okay.
You had this building, it was added onto as growth and needs change, and what would be the support. I like to think it's complementary, not copying in that respect.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, I guess, again, the Secretary for the Interior Standards does kind of mention including additions so that they can be differentiated from the original structure.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the big question here, right? Is it, if it's an addition that's going on to this building, then we treat it differently than if it's something we're trying to make this as part of the historic building itself.
Yes,
It's two different things.
Yeah, the material should still be appropriate for the historic district, but it should be differentiated from, it shouldn't be looked at in a way that people will get confused and think that that is the original part of the building.
Differentiated but compatible.
Correct.
Why are you specifying Boral horizontal siding on some, why was the selection from Hardy moved over to Boral for the horizontal lap siding?
I'm not Boral, I'm not.
It says in there fly ash Boral.
I think that was because
Walk-in cooler.
client Dante had said, hey, the town would like to see you use Dutch lap siding, you know, on that little wrap. And Hardy doesn't make that profile, but they're a company that does make one.
Yeah, I mean, it will.
And in fact, for some of the exterior detailing on the platform, it's sort of going to become a hybridized solution there, because to build out the columns to get some of the detailing, this company has a product that actually can be milled so that we can create chamfered edges, router details that you can't do with a Hardy plank.
I think it was AZEK you were specifying for.
Initially AZEK, yeah. But, and that's why I wanted to do that, and that was sort of, a voice behind me said, ditch the AZEK, they want the Hardy. And I said, but I can't get that detailing with Hardy.
Well, the AZEK is PVC too, and so that's going to have expansion and contraction issues with heat and
Right.
joints.
And that was something else that was brought to my
and it's a
attention
southern
too.
exposure on there,
Yeah.
so.
So it felt like that if the posts were of the one material, and then all the other, you know, to use as much of the Hardy as we can.
So we're gonna have horizontal, we're gonna have panel, and we're gonna have board and batten.
Yeah, it's just a lot of different components, and
Can you bring up the existing photo of the, I think, is there a picture in there of the existing building?
I can Google
Yeah,
that
just
too.
do it. Oh, here we go. It's all brick. And this is board and
yeah,
batten.
that's all board and batten.
But that was built, when was that addition built on the backside, Kevin? Any idea?
I'm sorry?
The brown addition on the back?
The current
I
kitchen.
think again that was in the early 90s.
Yeah, that's when a lot of that work was done. It's the early 90s.
And that is all wood right now, rotting right now. There you go.
I mean, I'd like to see some consistency here. I'd like to see some consistency with the roof. I think I agree with that statement. I think too many different materials defined for this structure is, I think if you tied the kitchen in with the new covering on the back of the porch, there's some sort of symmetry there that ties it together that says this is new and this is new. Instead of having shingles on one and then standing seam on the other. I understand you can't use shingles on the backside because of the low slope, but I would think maybe potentially we would recommend using standing seam on the kitchen as well. You gotta watch that 26 gauge oil can. You might wanna go to 24 gauge on that one. Any other suggestions? What about the siding choices here?
I mean, if you're gonna have that little shed on, like, cooler on the side, it's hard to go with a board and batten for the main building and then put a more detailed ornate siding on a smaller, in theory, addition portion of it.
Initially it was a much more simple siding, and then I was told
Yeah,
to
I gotcha. It just, I don't know. It's your project, but
No, but it's also your town, so
Yeah.
we're being respectful of it too. And I understand that too, because I actually struggled too, of like,
yeah.
I got board and batten here, I got this and that, and I was like, well, this is this, and then this was added on to, would that have done the same? And then also,
Which do you prefer, the board and batten or the horizontal lap?
I mean, depends. If you want to stylize it as an outbuilding, it would look more appropriate as board and batten, but depends what you're going for.
not to interrupt, but I think we were also taking our cue from what was already approved prior.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's what they have now, so let's,
Yeah, I'd like to see some consistency. I'd like to see either board batten or horizontal lap siding for all the new cladding on all the new additions. And panel, I understand on the backside for the porch, that makes sense. But I think standing seam roofing, I would probably go with the board and batten.
Yeah.
Just, I think it would tie it in nicely. What else? What else do we have on the application? It's doors, siding, roofing, windows.
Windows.
The problem with the windows, casement windows. Is there any lights in them? They're just single pane.
On the platform, yes, and up for discussion. On the track side, we do have some that became long, skinny windows.
Transoms.
They're in the office. They're in a service area. It sort of broke up that long elevation on the train track side.
Bring up that elevation.
And that was something that I just thought,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
no, it's on the architect. Let me see. No,
Oh yeah.
you start to see it there. That
Oh, like fixed windows over.
there you go.
Up here?
There you go.
Oh. Yeah, for the kitchen.
Those guys, and then that sort of cottagey thing is over a waitress station inside the restaurant too. Not where the public is sitting, but it's also, that's in that hyphen area too.
Just curious, are you doing laminated glass for this because of the noise of the trains?
That discussion, I did talk to some people about that. And you could spend the extra money, but you're not going to really get an effect. To the point where it was like bang for the buck just wasn't there. You know,
It's a lot of windows.
it's a lot of windows, and
It's a lot of noise.
it's a lot of noise when that train comes through there.
It's definitely when it comes
So
by.
close,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
close to it.
And when it's a long one, because we've had meetings there and we've had to hold for 10 minutes for a train's going by. I said, yeah. And I looked at the guys, I said, yeah, this will be fun for your diners. And they're like, they'll love it. They'll love seeing the trains. I'm like, okay.
I used to love sitting down there for that. Bring some earplugs, but
But we also like to think that with an insulated wall and double glazed windows, it's going to be better than what's there now with the roll down plastic.
Yeah, do some good air sealing. All right. Any other questions, comments? Guys, been quiet down there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the project, sort of the totality of the proposals, and I don't have any specific problems with any of it, to be honest.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Well, let's see how you feel. I'll make a motion to approve application 2025-06 for renovations at Sykesville train station located at 7618 Main Street, as detailed in the narrative as presented today in the application submitted to the town.
I think we want to add some alterations to this. We'd like to see the standing seam metal roof utilized in lieu of the asphalt shingles. And we'd also like to see the horizontal lap siding eliminated and potentially using the board and batten siding on all new structures in lieu of the panelized system on the back of the porch and side porch. Can you speak real quickly about how you're utilizing the joist? I saw something there about the floor joist.
Oh.
Chopping them up for the flooring.
But there can't be that many of them in there. What are they, like
Well,
16 inches on
Or
some?
no?
I mean, the rough estimate right now, because of their width, that if they were milled down, we could potentially get 2, if not 3, 12-inch wide planks out of each joist.
Cool.
The initial submission to the state spoke of lowering it, but then cataloging and tagging those joists and storing them off-site for any future use if someone wanted to raise the floor. I was like, all right, who's paying for the storage of that? You know, and can we be honest? That floor is never going to go back up once it goes back down.
No.
So I just thought that would be a waste of historic materials to just bury them.
Yeah.
So yeah, my rough calculations was, all right, if all of these joists get translated into flooring, and there's a good chunk of that freight room which will be the bar. So that's not going
Oh,
to
the bar's moving?
Yeah, well, and where the existing bar is a more modified space, that smaller footprint of that existing bar will be a raw bar.
Will be a what now?
Raw bar. Oyster shucking and that like. And also that initial room is just, we don't want to put a lot of people in there because it's just too crowded and
When
too
you
much.
walk in, it's just too much traffic.
It's just nightmarish.
It's always fun getting through there.
Right. So that's a partially, it's like, all right, we move the bar into the freight room, we get some decent there, and then enclose that back area where we can get the lion's share of seating, get the numbers back up to what they need to be to support the restaurant business.
Any other alterations to the statement? Anything else to be added?
So do we just want to clarify the motion then before we?
Yeah, just clarification to the motion is that we will be recommending that standing seam metal roofing be used on all portions of the addition and the porch, and that board and batten fiber cement siding be utilized in the new additions, and panelized fiber cement be used on the back porch section trimmed. And you're going to be trimming with 5-pon or whatever you're using for it.
No, the true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that was it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
They put a rim joint on
Got a nice speech.
and then all these tied in there.
Yeah.
And that's why they're rotting.
As soon as he calls on.
Great detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to the agenda. Any town updates?
Not a lot. I'm sure everyone's noticed the ongoing work on Baldwin Drive down in front of this building. So that's happening. I think the idea is to have that done come farmers market time. As of my conversation with Joe a few hours ago, it's still on track for that. So, and then other than that, town election's coming up. So if you're interested to vote, May 6th. That's all I got.
Any violations? Anything noted? Except for somebody repointing steps.
That's maintenance. You want me to let him
It's
go?
another colorful point there. I don't know. It looks a little, really pops now.
Looks good.
Pretty obvious.
It looks weathered. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Well, I'd like to say just a couple things.
Sure.
I should have told you earlier. So 2 years ago, I was appointed as the Historic District Commission liaison, and I am not seeking re-election, so this is my last meeting here. So you guys will have a new
You're still not going to come though?
commissioner. So I know my attendance has not been 100%, but I have, and you can attest to this. I do watch the meetings online.
But you owe us a couple, I think, maybe 3 years worth.
Yeah, exactly. But I wanted to let you know that the mayor and the town council really appreciate how serious you guys take the Historic District Commission, and every time I watch a meeting, you guys are well versed in the historic materials that are being used here, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Historic District is thriving the way it is because we have a board that really cares about what's going on down there. So from the mayor and town council, and from myself, really, because I was a little naive coming in here, the Historic District is really my first take of it. So I really appreciate all your work and all your volunteering, so thank you so much. And good luck with the next commissioner, or whoever the town council appointee will be. So,
Thanks, Al.
Well, I enjoyed having you.
well, thank you. Thank you. I'll watch it. I'll make the pledge to watch every historic district commissioner.
You can still
Chat about
I
it.
guess, I mean, I do. Yeah, so I just wanted to, yeah. I know I haven't been here all the time, but I do watch them, so thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second? All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Work to you.
Thank you so much. Really, yeah, man. Good luck. Thank you so much for all the hard work.